These are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, The Rising of Targeted Attacks. We are excited you're able to join us today and hope you find the presentation to be informative. Before we begin, and I turn things over to Luis, I have a few housekeeping items to cover with you. During the webinar, you will not be able to speak directly with the presenters. However, we will take questions at the end via the Q&A and chat boxes. Please enter all questions you may have in the Q&A box and we will answer them as time permits at the end of the webinar. Any questions we are not able to get to during the allotted time, we will follow up with you directly. A recording of the webinar will be available in the coming days for you to share with a team member that may not have been able to join us today. Of course, our contact information will be available at the end of the presentation, so you can always reach out to us directly with any questions. With all that covered, let's get started. Please welcome Luis from our PandaLabs team.
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you very much for joining this webinar. I'm Luis Corrons, PandaLabs Technical Director. Yes, so you can put a face to this voice. This is me. I've been involved in the security industry since 1999, almost more than 18 years now. I'm a regular speaker at security conferences, and I belong to a number of nonprofit organizations related to security, of course, like such as the Whitelist or Mute or the Anti-Malware Testing Standards Organization. And this is it, just a short intro about myself. So let's talk about what we want to talk about, targeted attacks. So a targeted attack is any kind of malicious attack that is targeted to a specific individual or company. And unlike widespread malware campaigns that try to hit as many victims as possible, here the attacker or attackers know who the victim is beforehand and will just go for that victim. We know that malware is a real threat and is affecting all of us. I especially like this statement provided by Gartner 3 years ago in 2014. Malware is already inside your organization, deal with it. I like this very much, but usually for my presentations, I use a different approach, which is another way of putting the same. I usually describe it like there are two different types of companies. Those who have been attacked and those who have been attacked and are not aware of it yet. And that kind of describes the situation we're living right now. So performing a targeted attack is more difficult and takes more resources than a regular attack. And at the same time, the reward can be much bigger. But I think because of this difficulty, that's why when we think about targeted attacks, we instantly associate them with big corporations. We all have seen the different cases in the news, like the attack on the Sony PlayStation Network, Target, LinkedIn, Yahoo, and all those cases. But do they really only happen in those big corporations? Well, as the Target case showed us, companies as big as his main customer or his main partner or supplier. In that case, before breaking into Target, the attackers went after a small air conditioning company that among their customers had Target. And the attackers used this small company as a bridge to get to the real victim, which was Target and their customers. So, okay, then the question is, are medium and small companies that do not have like huge customers, partners, etc., out of the picture as they are not interested enough to become a victim of a targeted attack? So, common sense tells you that, yeah, well, probably they are not going to suffer any kind of targeted attack, okay? They are not big enough, and they are not interested enough. But let's take a look at what is really happening in the world. And for that, I want to show you a number of different cases that we have been investigating in the lab. The case one, which I have decided to title Holidays in Spain, now that the summer is approaching. I think this is one of the best examples in this presentation, as we're talking about a really small company and a highly customized attack. Why I have called it Holidays in Spain? Well, The victim is a small company, which is a small hotel chain. They just have 3 hotels, and all of them are located in top vacation spots in Spain. So that explains the name, holidays in Spain. This company, they have a person that takes care of all the bookings made directly by customers. And in those cases, the hotel, or better said, this employee, sends a template to be filled in and returned in order to confirm the reservation. So how did this attack begin? It all started with an email message addressed to this hotel employee saying that, as agreed, attached, it was all the information needed to pay for a hotel stay. And that message, when opened, apart from this text, it contained a zip file. When you open it, it had a file with a Microsoft Word icon, as we are seeing here. And when the file was executed, it was showing the following. It is exactly the same form the hotel provides with all the information filled in, including credit card. So where is the trick here? This is the same document, even though the name of the document was the same. Well, the thing is that the file that was inside the zip file, it looks like a Word file because of the icon, but it wasn't. It was an executable file. And yes, when you double click on it, it shows you this Word document you can see in this slide. However, what it was really doing, it was a bit different. It had, it was dropping 3 files on the computer of the victim. Then it ran the first one, the reader underscore sl.cmd, which is basically a script that will open the second file, this one that I call file name. This file name, it was actually the number of the name of the company. So that's why I changed it here. And it was the same file name that the company used to when they were sending out that to customers. So the first thing the script was doing was opening this doc file, and afterwards it was starting the third file, the DLL file, giving it a specific parameter. This parameter, this is the typical trick used by attackers to fool sandboxes and similar technologies. Because if you try to execute the DLL without any kind of parameter, it won't have any kind of malicious behavior, so it won't be detected because it's not doing anything bad, let's say. However, when it is started by this script, it gets the proper parameter, and then it does something else. So if it gets this parameter, it loads and it connects to a website. And if everything goes fine, it gets an answer from that website, and it will download what it looks to be a JPG file, a picture. So the domain name here, as you can see, it is hidden because it was the name of the company again. But this is really interesting because the original name here on this domain was the name of the company. And how can that be? If were the attackers controlling the website of the victim? No, they weren't, because this company was the name of the company .com. And here, instead of .com, you can see .ga, which is Ghana, it's an African country. So they had actually registered a domain name in this African country with the same name of the company. And why did they go through all this trouble to do this? Well, imagine that you are in charge of the IT or the security in this company, and you see a connection from one computer downloading a picture from a domain with the name of your company. So it will probably go unnoticed. So they really make an effort to go unnoticed all the way. So what they were doing anyway with this picture? Well, this was a customer of ours, and we were able to block it just when the employee tried to run the executable, the first one, inside the zip file. And when we were analyzing that, the attackers, as the attack had failed, removed everything from the server, so the picture wasn't there anymore. But after doing some reverse engineering in the DLL, we could see that it was actually a picture, but the picture had embedded an executable file, and what the DLL was doing was extracting this this executable file from the picture and then executing it. It was extracting it to disk and then running it. The second case I want to take a look at with you, I've called it here custom ransomware, but I think it would be better called inside job. As an introduction to this case, I want to show you a couple of interesting facts that can be found in the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report that was recently published. As you can see here, when they talk about security breaches, they define it as an incident where there has been confirmed disclosure of data to an unauthorized party. There are many interesting things in this report, and actually it's like 75 pages long, and it's really interesting if you are into security. And when it comes to security breaches, you can also see the different tactics used by the attackers. Here we have it. And these are the two facts I want to take a look at. 62% of these breaches feature hacking, which actually makes sense. It's something we see quite frequently. So yeah, I mean, I really agree with that. And then the second one is that malware was used in 51% of the cases. And this one is pretty interesting because it is the same as saying that in almost half of the security breaches, 49% of them, no malware was used. Or to say it crystal clear, traditional antivirus is useless against these attacks, as there is no malware involved they can protect against. So this was a small introduction before I go into the case. Now let's go and take a look at this inside job. The victim in this case is a medium-sized company from Europe. It has around 700 computers between servers and workstations spread through their offices, and they have offices in 10 countries in between America and Europe. They do not work in any critical sector and have no, let's say, state secrets, so to speak. So they are just a normal, regular medium company. In February this year, they purchased our next-gen endpoint detection and response solution, which is called Adaptive Defense, to install it on top of the antivirus they were using. I don't remember which one it was, but it was not Panda. And nobody knew it back then, but one of the first computers where Adaptive Defense was deployed, when they started deploying it, was already compromised by external attackers. We didn't know how they got there, as they were already there. Everything happened in just 5 days. So the very first day, it was a day where the agent of Adaptive Defense was installed in this particular computer. What we first saw was a user logging into the computer, and then they were running the CSBDE. This is a tool made by Microsoft. It lists all the computers in the Active Directory and export the list of computers to a CSV file. So nothing special or suspicious even. Then with the netuser command, which is included in Windows, he got a list of all the users in the domain. And then this was a bit more suspicious. He executed a custom version of Mimikatz. Mimikatz is a very popular tool to capture Windows credentials. That is, it's used a lot in security. It's always part of the basic Swiss knife of any pen tester. And that was it. Nothing else happened that day. So what happened the next day? This happened. Nothing. The day after that, nothing. We didn't see anything, at least in that computer or in any other computers where we were installed in the network. Nothing suspicious was happening. So now let's go to the fourth day. Here, the user logs in again to the computer and copy 3 different tools. The first one, written in .NET, was looking for active computers in the network, computers that were online. It's using as input the CSV file created by the Microsoft tool he used the first day. So with that, he had a list of computers, of all the computers in the Active Directory. So he's just checking which ones are connected to the network and which ones aren't. And this tool is basically what it is doing. He runs the tool, and then he will get 2 text files as output, a live TXT with the computers that are connected to the network, and unreached TXT, those that are unreachable, of course. So that's the first thing he did. After that, he used another tool, was again written in .NET, that copy the file that you want to a number of computers in the same network. As an input to which computers it has to copy the file to, it is using the file alive.txt created with the previous tool. He tried that like a test. It didn't work because the user he was with was a regular user and had not enough permissions to copy files to other computers in the network. So then he ran it again, but as a different user, and this user was a network administrator, and he tried again, and of course it worked. And finally, the third tool that he copied was the PSExec, which is again a Microsoft tool, and that allows the execution of files in remote computers. Of course, if you have permissions to do so. He didn't use it. He just copied the tool to the computer, and that was it. The attacker didn't do anything else. So on the final day, the 5th day, the attacker goes again to the network, logs in, and runs a new version of the tool to copy files to remote computers. It's exactly the same tool. The only change is that now it has an interface, and there is a progress bar in the interface, so he see how long it's taking to copy the files to all the computers. And it uses it to copy a script to all the computers in the network, and then execute the script using the PSExec, the tool he had copied the day before. What that script is doing is basically deleting any kind of backup file that it's present in any of those computers when the tool is being executed. After that, it ran the tool again to copy another file, a new executable written in .NET again, which turned out to be a ransomware. Adaptive defense was not fully deployed in this network, but the execution of the ransomware was blocking all the computers where adaptive defense was installed. And for those computers, the attacker realized that it wasn't working. So he tried again with a new variant of the same ransomware, and it failed again. When we took a look at both variants, we found out that both had been compiled during the days 2 and 3. You remember those days 2 and 3 where nothing was happening? Well, so the guy was at home or at his office or wherever, actually developing this ransomware, and that's why there was no activity during those days. So at this point, you will be asking maybe why I have called this an inside job. Well, we didn't know that, but later we learned that the attack was performed by a former employee. So he belonged to the IT department of this company, and when he was fired, his credentials were revoked. However, he had the credentials of one of his former colleagues, and use those credentials to get into the network and carry out all of these attacks. And this is the second case. Now let's take a look at the third case. As I was saying before, there are two types of companies, and guess which type this belongs to. So we might think that companies that have been compromised have neglected their security responsibilities, but this is not really the case. And this is a good example of that. Here, we're talking about a company with offices in only one country, although it has a few thousand computers. This is a picture of what it could be their network. They have a couple of domains. They are using like different antivirus solutions at different layers of the network. Panda was none of them. They have their network properly segmented. They have a number of security measures in place, like they have IPS, like intrusion prevention systems, proxies, firewalls, etc. And they have a small security team of their own. And on top of that, they have a security operations center run by a third party with tens of people working there 24/7. Recently, they acquired Adaptive Defense to be installed on top of the antivirus they were using in the workstations and servers, and they started deploying it in one of the domains. While they were still deploying it in the workstations of that domain, we detected some suspicious activities. In one computer with Adaptive Defense, it was created a scheduled task to execute a file via CMD. Adaptive Defense blocked it, so they tried the same with a different binary, and we block it again. You may ask why is so suspicious a scheduled task in a computer. I mean, it is something that can be rather usual in a corporate network, and it is. But at the same time, it is a technique that it is used a lot in lateral movements to compromise other computers once you are inside the network. So that's why it was suspicious for us. Those two files had the same functionality. They were contacting to, or like creating an FTP server to transfer files, and also enable that computer to open a remote cell from another computer. Funny enough, one of them was written in C, and it was protected with Safe Engine, a tool to avoid detection. And the other one was written in Python and converted to executable, Windows executable with the Py2exe tool. So completely different languages, unrelated, but the functionality was exactly the same. The next day, they tried to attack 4 other computers protected with Adaptive Defense. The first one, they try again the same approach, running a file through CMD via a scheduled task, and it was blocked. The second case, they tried it again. It was blocked. In the first computer, the file they were trying to run was the same one as the previous day, but on the second computer, it was a different file that had a kind of proxy functionality. Anyway, it was blocked. But then in the third and fourth computers, they already had the tool that allow opening a remote cell installed on those 2 computers. So they actually use it to open a remote cell. And from there, they tried to run the proxy, but it was blocked again by Adaptive Defense. So as they couldn't run the software they wanted, they finally, in these computers, they installed a Microsoft tool that was basically to enable remote connections to those computers via remote desktop. Funny enough, well, funny to say it so, the remote cell that was open in those computers was open from one of the domain controllers of the company, of that domain. So everything was saying that domain controller was compromised. And At this point, we call, of course, our customer to tell him that what was happening in his network and ask him to connect to that domain controller. We were not installed there, so we didn't have any visibility of what was going on there. So yeah, he did that, and then we could see that the domain controller was fully compromised. It was getting information from compromised endpoints, and then it was redirecting it to another domain controller in the same domain. This other domain controller was also compromised, and then we could see how the stolen information that is receiving is being set to yet another domain controller, in this case, in the second domain where we were not present at all. And from this last domain controller, the information was being sent to a server located in Malaysia. We have not performed any audit on this network or their computers, so we don't have details on how they were compromised in the first place. What we do know is that the attackers had started at least 2 months earlier, according to the evidences we saw in one of the domain controllers. It looked like they entered to one of the domains, they compromised that, they were stealing information from there. And once they were done, they went and attacked the domain controllers on the other domain, and then they tried to go for the workstations running there. And that's when we had just entered in the company, and they tried to attack some of the computers where we were installed, and that's how we realized of all this. So we have seen the 3 cases. The first one, a small business which received a highly customized attack using social engineering. The file names were the same, and the kind of files they were using the same that the company sends out for customers. The domain names registered by the attackers were the same as the company, but in a different country to go unnoticed. In the second case, it was a small, medium business, and they were using non-malicious tools until the end, which of course, I mean, at the end of the day, they were using ransomware, and that tool is of course malicious. But all the tools they had been, this attacker had been used previously were either kind of Microsoft tools or at least non-malicious by themselves tools. And in the third one, here we have seen a medium business with a really competent security team and many security measures there. Yet it had been compromised for more than 2 months, and they did not notice anything. All 3 attacks were sophisticated. Right now, we are protecting like around 1 million workstations and servers with adaptive defense, and we are blocking these kind of attacks on a daily basis. These have been just 3 of the many cases that our threat hunting team analyzes. What is worse, cyber criminals have realized that traditional antivirus solutions cannot cope with malware-less attacks, those that take advantage of existing non-malicious tools. So even the day-to-day attacks, not only just the targeted attacks, but these day-to-day attacks are becoming more complex, and to be avoided is needed like next-generation solutions that let you have a complete control and visibility of everything that is happening in your network. And this is it. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. And if you have any questions, now it's your time. Any question?
Luis, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.